Bonjour and welcome to hopefully another enjoyable video. Now, if you aren't familiar with Framer Motion, I highly encourage you to watch the previous video because there we explained how to install Framer Motion and we explained Framer Motion in a nutshell. Alright, that being said, we are going to animate this whole container that we see here. So this parent container, and as you see, this container has some child elements that we see here. Now if we go to the browser, then we see that these are the child elements. So this thumbnail here with the text and the one here and here are the child elements of this parent div. Now we are going to animate this whole parent div right here, and the first thing we need to do is import motion from Framer Motion. And as you see here, we already done that because we have done that in the previous video. Now the only thing we need to do now is we need to convert this to a motion component or a motion element like this. So we place it in the opening tag and we do the same in the closing tag. And now we have some extra superpowers because now we can do all kinds of fancy things. And the thing that we want to do is that we want to push this parent div all the way to the left. So we want to push it off the screen and then we want to let it slide in. Now, not sure if this makes sense yet, but I will show you in a bit what I mean with this. And important to mention is that in the previous video, we explained the X and Y properties in Framer Motion. Now, in this video, we are going to use the X property to push this whole div off the screen. Now, to give a quick recap, and if you want to know more details, I suggest to watch the previous video, but in Framer Motion, we can use X and Y properties to move a motion component based on its current position. And the X translates the element to the left when it is a negative number and to the right when it is a positive number. And the Y does it exactly the other way around. So it translates the element to the top when it is a negative number and to the bottom when it is a positive number. So as mentioned, we will use the X property to push this whole element off the screen. So what we can do is we can say initial equals, and then we say X minus 100. And if we now go to the browser, we see that it is pushed more to the left, but maybe you don't see it that good. So let's change this to 300. And then we see it's pushed more to the left. But when we specify it like this, it will use pixels as a default. So this means that it pushes the element 300 pixels to the left based on its current position. But we can also use other units than pixels. For instance, we can use the viewport width. And the only thing we need to do then is that we need to place this inside quotes. So we can say, so this means push it 100% of the viewport width to the left. And if we now go to the browser and we refresh it, we see that it is pushed off the screen. So it is completely gone. And what we can then do is we can say, we want this as a starting position, and then we want to animate it to the original position. So we can give this a value of 0. So that means animate it to the original position as specified in the code. So if we now go to the browser and we refresh it, we see that this slides in. Now finally, we can specify how the transition from start to end, or in other words, from initial to animate, should happen. So we can say transition, and then let's give it a type of spring and a duration of 1 second, and let's give it a little bit of bounce effect of 0.3. Now if we now go to the browser and we refresh it, we see this nice animation here. However, we do have a problem because normally, of course, you start at the top of the website. So when we start here and we refresh the page and then we scroll down to the section, we don't see the animation at all. And this is because this animation here starts when the page loads. And when we finally scroll down to this section here, the animation is already finished. Now, in this part of the video, we are going to fix that. So this animation here, we want that it starts when it is in view. So when we scroll down, then we want that it starts right now. All right, now in order to fix that, we need to manage the state in our component because we want to know if an element is in view, and when that is the case, we should trigger an animation. Now, in order to manage this state, we will use hooks, and more specifically, we will make use of 3 hooks. And that will be the use in view hook from the React intersection observer, the use animation hook from framer motion, and the use effect hook from React. Now, if you have no idea what hooks are, I would suggest to search for it on the web after this video, of course, because this will not be an in-depth hook tutorial. Alright, let's now start with the first one, and that is the use in view hook from the React intersection observer. Now, according to the docs, this is a React implementation of the intersection observer API to tell you when an element enters or leaves the viewport. Now, this is exactly what we need. So let's install this bad boy, and therefore we simply copy this. We go to the terminal, and then we paste it in here and we press enter. So if we now go to the package.json, so where is it? Package.json, then here we see that the React intersection observer is installed. Alright, so let's close this and this. Alright, now in order to monitor when an element is in view, we need to apply the use in view hook from React intersection observer. And the first thing we need to do is import this hook, so we can import it like this: use in view from, and then React intersection observer, the one here. And now we can use this hook, and therefore we can do use in view like this, and then we will use object destructing, so we can do const and then ref, and here we do in view equals this here. Alright, so what do we have here? So this in view that you see here results in a boolean that specifies if an element is in view. So true means that it is in view, and false means, of course, that it is not in view. Now this ref property that you see here, we need to assign that to the element that we want to monitor. So in this case, we want to monitor this parent div right here, because inside this parent div we have our motion element or component that is pushed off the screen. So if we want to monitor that, we can say ref equals, and then we say ref, and now this here is monitored via this use in view hook. And when the div is in view, it sets the in view boolean to true, and when the div is not in view, it sets it to false. And this happens completely behind the scenes via the use in view hook, so we basically get this for free. Now then we can use the use effect hook from React, and of course we also need to import this. So we can say import use effect from React. Alright. Now this use effect hook basically takes a parameter as a function, so we can say use effect, and then we give it a function from nothing to console log. Use effect hook in view is, and then our in view property. I will explain this in a little bit, so hang on. Alright, so with this use effect hook that we see here, we can tell React that our component needs to do something after it renders. So how does this work? Well, this function inside this use effect hook gets called every time that the component renders. Or in other words, when the data or the state in our component changes. Now in addition, this use in view hook that we see here changes the data in our component, because this div here is monitored, and when it is in view it sets this boolean here to true, and when this div is not in view it sets this boolean here to false, and this updates the data in our component, and as a result our component re-renders. And what then happens is that the function inside this use effect hook gets executed. So let's open up developer tools. Let's go to the console, and then let's remove this. All right, maybe I have to zoom this in a bit. Now let's refresh the page. Now the use effect hook is executed and it's set to false. Now when we scroll down and we reach this part here, we see that it is set to true, and when we go up, we see it is set to false. When we go down, to true, etc. So what I previously explained, we see that that is exactly happening. Now there is one final remark, and that is that the use effect hook accepts another parameter of type array, and in that array you can specify which data should be monitored. So we can say in view, and then this use effect hook monitors this in view boolean that we see here. And when that one changes, it executes the function inside this use effect hook. So with this parameter here, we can specify certain conditions. Alright, now there is still one hook to use, and that is the use animation hook from Framer Motion. So of course we need to import that one also. So let's do that here. Import use animation from Framer Motion. So with this hook we can basically start and stop animations. So in order to use it, we can simply do const animation, and we can give this any name we like, and then use animation. This is the hook. And now comes the fun part, because now we can combine this use in view hook and this use animation hook inside this use effect hook. So we now combine the three hooks together to get the result we want. Alright, so what we can do is we can say if the parent div that we monitor here is in view, then we want to start an animation. And what we then want to do is that we want to use the X property with the value 0. So it should use the position of our motion element that we defined in the code. And for the transition, it should use the type spring. The duration should take 1 second, and it should apply a little bit of bounce effect. Alright, now if the element is not in view, then we want to start another animation. So we do animation start, and what we then want is that the motion element is placed completely off the screen. So we can do -100% of the viewport width. And let's place this here. Now, and if we now go to the website and let's close developer tools and we refresh it, then we see that this still doesn't do anything. And that is of course because we now need to go to our motion element here, and then we can remove this part here and this part here, and then inside this animate props we give it our hook. So that is this here, this animation here, and then we can say animation. And if we now go to the website and we refresh it, and when we now scroll down, then we see that this element pops in when it is in view. Bam. Bam. So that is exactly what we wanted. Now finally, we still need a little bit of fine-tuning, because when we scroll down very slowly and we wait here for a little bit of time, now we see that nothing happens. So now we don't see any animation. And that is because we monitor this parent div, then this in view property is set to true, and the animation of this motion component is started. However, this motion component is placed a bit more, a bit more to the bottom of this parent div. So yeah, if you scroll down through here and you wait here a little bit, and then it is already executed. So what we can do in order to fix this is that in the use in view hook, we can specify a property. So we can say threshold 0.2. And with this threshold, we can specify a number between 0 and 1. So a threshold of 0.2 means that 20% of this parent div here should be visible before it sets the in view boolean to true. So if we scroll down through here and we wait here for a little bit, for instance, I take a sip of my tea. And if we now scroll down, then we see that the animation still gets triggered. And if we go up and below, we see that it gets triggered again and again and again. Alright, so that was it. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it, and see you in the next video.